Reverend Steve, keeping it simple. We're going to be in Luke 10, verse 25 today. And this is taken back from my last teaching, evil to evil is evil. So I have a notion in my head, and this is my next group of teachings I'll be doing. It's called Who is My Neighbor? And right from Jesus' own mouth, we are going to find out who is our neighbor. And we, as Christians today, must have take a step back, take the emotions out, and love one another. That's the most important thing. How is the world going to know that God has sent Jesus? Is that if we have love for one another. And that's not only in the church, it's also to people, showing love to all people. And besides this teaching that we're going to be getting into Luke, I'll be going into other things that, that Paul talks about. And that'll be my next teaching. And some things he says about the church, Judaism, Gentiles, all that mixed together. There is either a Jew or Gentile. There's much to be said about that. But the first start off of this, and starting in this teaching, is who is my neighbor? And this is the question a righteous Pharisee asks Jesus, somebody who knew the law. So he's trying to skate around this question that Jesus asked him. He comes up with the answer, right, and he tries to skate. Who's my neighbor? And Jesus tells him who's his neighbor, and he uses the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I think we're in that place today when we look at what's going on in Israel and the Palestinian people and the Jewish people. They are not getting along. Just as I said yesterday in my teaching, they are not getting along. Both sides do not know the Lord. And as Christians, we have to understand that. I'm gonna say this straight out, and I'm gonna lay this down as a foundation. Many Christians today, we see that God has put Israel in the land, and we put that as God's blessing. No matter what the Israel does, it's good for God. God is letting it happen. It's all right. That's not the case. Israel was put in the land back before in the Old Testament. And they went back to their old ways right away. And God had to punish them. And what do you think the world and everybody turning against Israel is really about? It's about them not doing the right thing, not loving their neighbor. I spoke about that in Leviticus 19, that neighbors should be considered in Israel just as one of them. Is that happening today? Is what is happening in Israel Israel's fault? In a lot of ways, yes, it is. In a lot of ways it isn't. In a lot of ways, it's a lot of hate and anger on both sides. I'm not negating what's going on the other side. There's a lot of hate and a lot of violence there. But both sides become violent. And as I said yesterday, evil to evil is evil. Evil for evil is evil. There's no getting around it. There's no difference in God's eyes. It's evil. It's violence. And that's why God destroyed the world, right? In the flood. Because he's seen the violence. And that's why he's going to come back, because he's going to see the violence. Does that say that the nations around Israel are not going to come against Israel? They are, but So we're going to be in Luke 10, verse 25. One day, an expert in religious laws stood up to test Jesus. So right away, he's testing Jesus by asking him this question: Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus replied, What does the law of Moses say? And how do you read it? The man answered, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Right, Jesus says. Jesus told him, Do this and you will live. So he's going to be trying to be righteous right here. He's trying to zing one to Jesus, but no. Listen to this. The man wanted to justify himself, justify his actions. So he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Now Jesus gets into the parable of the Good Samaritan. We're going to take this up tomorrow, and I hope you're truly blessed. You can see where I'm going with this. God bless.